everybody. You're probably all enjoying the beautiful, beautiful weather outside. It's such a glorious day. It's almost like summer is back again. I was thinking about this live thing. Most of you are probably watching this thing after, not really live, although I really enjoyed seeing some of you hop on together with me because we were able to kind of exchange. I could read out a few of your messages and I could, you could give shout outs to each other and things like that. But I can see that somebody has joined me right now. I wonder who it is. Come and say hi. I'm going to read chapter 5 from the story in a minute. And if you've got any things that you want to say to the others, or if you want to give a shout out to somebody that you love but that you missed but that you can't see, or if you want to tell me about your bear hunts, or if you want to tell me anything, tell me. Just write it down in the comments and I'll read it, and I'll either respond to it like today, if I can still see it in the comments, or send me a message later and I will make sure that I mention it in the next time that I go live. So let's see. Chapter 5. Chapter 5. But then the day came when I found out what was so special about Sophia. One morning, Jonathan said, "We're going over to the Queen of the Pigeons for a while." "That sounds grand," I said. "What kind of queen is that?" "Sophia," said Jonathan. "The Queen of the Pigeons was on the outskirts of Cherry Valley, with the high mountains just behind it. We rode over there in the morning, and Sophia was standing there feeding her pigeons, all her snow-white pigeons, and when I saw them, I remembered her. That white one that sat on my windowsill at least 1,000 years ago now." "Do you remember?" I whispered to Jonathan. "Do you remember? Wasn't it one of those pigeons that lent you the protection of its feathers when you came to see me back on Earth?" "Yes," said Jonathan. "How could I otherwise have gone? Sophia's pigeons are the only ones who can fly through the skies as far as they like." The pigeons were like a white cloud round Sophia, and she was standing there quite still in the middle, surrounded by the flapping of their wings. It was exactly what a queen of the pigeons should look like, I thought. Then she caught sight of us. She greeted us kindly as usual, but she wasn't happy. She was quite sorrowful, and at once said in a very low voice to Jonathan, "I found Violanta dead with an arrow in her breast last night. Up in the Wolf Gorge she was, and the message had gone." Jonathan's eyes darkened. I had never seen him like that. Never had I seen him so embittered. I recognized neither him nor his voice. "That means it's as I thought," he said. "We've got a traitor in Cherry Valley." "Yes, I think we do," said Sophia. "I didn't want to believe it, but now I see that it must be true." You could see how sad he was, and yet she turned to me and said, "Come, Carl, you must come and look round my place all the same." She lived alone at Tulip Farm with her pigeons and her bees and her goats, with a garden so full of flowers that you could hardly make your way through it. While Sophia took me round, Jonathan started digging and weeding in that way you have to do in spring. I looked at everything: Sophia's many beehives and her tulips and her narcissi, which is actually just daffodils, but I don't know why they say narcissi. Maybe that's an English word as well. I'm learning new words too, guys, every day. And her inquisitive goats. But all the time I kept thinking about that Violanta, whoever that was, who had been shot up there in the mountains. We soon went back to Jonathan, who was on his knees weeding so hard that his fingers were black. Sophia looked sorrowfully again. She looked at him and she said, "Listen, my gardener's boy, I think that you'll soon have to set to work on something else now." "I can see that," said Jonathan. Poor Sophia, she was more worried than she wished us to see. She went and gazed up towards the mountains, looking so troubled that I grew anxious too. What was she looking out for? Who was she expecting? We were soon to know, as suddenly Sophia said, there she is! Thank God! There's Paloma! It was one of her pigeons that came flying in. At first nothing but a little dot up amongst the mountains, but soon she was with us, landing on Sophia's shoulder. Come, Jonathan, said Sophia quickly. Yes, but Carl, said Jonathan. He must be told all about it now, mustn't he? Of course, said Sophia, but hurry, both of you. With the pigeon on her shoulder, Sophia ran ahead of us into the house. She took us into a little room off the kitchen, and then she bolted the door, closed the shutters. I suppose she wanted to be sure that no one could either see or hear what we were doing. Paloma, my pigeon, said Sophia, have you a better message than the last one with you today? Oh, hello there. I love you too, Ava. It's nice to see your message. She thrust her hand under one of the pigeon's wings and brought out a little capsule. Out of it she took a tiny roll of paper, just like the one I had seen Jonathan take out of the basket and hide in the sideboard at home. Read it quickly, said Jonathan. Quickly, quickly. Sophia read it and let out a little cry. Oh, they've taken Ova too, she said. Now there's no one left there who can really do anything. She handed the piece of paper to Jonathan, and as he read it, his eyes darkened even more. A traitor in Cherry Valley, he said. Who do you think it is? Who can be such a wretch? I don't know, said Sophia. Not yet, but God help him, because whoever he is, we will find out. I was sitting there listening and not understanding a thing. Sophia sighed, and then she said, You must tell Carl, and I'll go and get some breakfast for you in the meantime. She vanished into the kitchen. Jonathan sat down on the floor with his back against the wall. He sat there in silence, looking at his muddy fingers. But finally he said, Well, I'll tell you now that Sophia has said that I may. He had told me a great deal about Nangiala, both before I had come and afterwards, but nothing like what I was told here in Sophia's room. You remember that I said, he began, that life here in Cherry Valley was easy and simple. And it has been like that, and it should be like that, but it's not likely to be like that any longer. For when it's miserable and difficult over there in the other valley, then life becomes difficult in Cherry Valley too, you see. Is there more than one valley? I asked. And then Jonathan told me about Nangiala's 2 green valleys that lay there so beautifully amongst Nangiala's mountains. Cherry Valley and Wild Rose Valley, 2 deep valleys with mountains round them, high, wild mountains, which were difficult to cross if you did not know the twisting, dangerous little paths, Jonathan said. But the people in the valleys knew the paths, and they could travel freely to see each other. Or, to put it more accurately, they used to be able to, said Jonathan. Now, no one is allowed out of Wild Rose Valley, and no one can get in there either, only Sophia's pigeons. Why not? I said. Because Wild Rose Valley is no longer a free country, said Jonathan. Because that valley is in enemy hands. He looked at me as if he was sorry to have to frighten me. And no one knows what will happen in Cherry Valley, he said. I was afraid then. I had been going around so calmly, thinking that there was nothing dangerous in Nangiala, but now I was truly frightened. What sort of enemy is it? I asked. His name is Tangle, said Jonathan, and he spoke the name so that it sounded horrible and dangerous. Where is Tangle? I said, and then Jonathan told me about Carmagnaca, the country up in the mountains of the ancient mountains, beyond the river of the ancient rivers, where Tangle ruled, cruel as a serpent. I grew even more afraid, but I didn't want to show it. Why can't he stay there in his ancient mountains? I said. Why does he have to come to Nangiala and destroy things? Well, you know, said Jonathan, the person who can answer that one can answer a great deal. I don't know why he has to spoil everything there is. It just is so. He begrudges the people in the valleys and the life they lead, and he needs bondsmen. Bondsman, we've talked about it in room 16, what that is. What do you think it means? Then he sat silent again, staring at his hands, but he did mumble something and I heard it. The monster. He has cutla too. Bondsmen are slaves. Cutla. I don't know why that sounded even more horrible than everything else that he had said, and I asked him, Who's Cutla? But Jonathan shook his head. No, Rusky, I know that you are already scared. I don't want to talk about Cutla, because then you won't sleep at night. Thanks for reading this, said Elise. You're very welcome, Elise. I love this story so much, and I'm glad that you are enjoying it too. Instead, he told me what was so special about Sophia. Let's forget about Cutla, he said. Sophia is the leader of our secret struggle against Tangle, said Jonathan. We fight against him, you see, to help Wild Rose Valley. Though we have to do it secretly. But Sophia, I said, why just her? Because she's strong and she knows about things like that, said Jonathan, and because she's not the slightest bit afraid. Afraid? But you're not afraid either, Jonathan, are you? He thought for a while, and then he said, No, I'm not afraid either. Oh, how I wished that I could be as brave as Sophia and Jonathan, but instead I was sitting there so terrified that I could hardly think. This business with Sophia and her pigeons flying with secret messages over the mountains, is that something that everyone knows about? Only the people who we can definitely trust, said Jonathan. But amongst them there is one traitor, and that's enough. Now his eyes darkened again, and he said sorrowfully, Violanta had a secret message with her from Sophia when she was shot down last night. And if that message has fallen into Tangle's hands, that means death for many people over in Wild Rose Valley. I thought it was horrible that anyone could shoot a pigeon that just came flying by. So white, so innocent, even if she did have a secret message on her. And suddenly I remembered what we had in the sideboard at home. I asked Jonathan why we should have secret messages in our sideboard, as wouldn't that be dangerous? Yes, it is dangerous, said Jonathan, though it would be even more dangerous to keep them at Sophia's. Tangle's spies would search there first of all if they came to Cherry Valley, and not the house of a gardener's boy. That was what was so good, Jonathan said, that no one except Sophia knew who he really was, that he wasn't just her gardener's boy, but also her closest man in the struggle against Tangle. Sophia decided that herself, he said. She didn't want a single person here in Cherry Valley to know, and so you must also swear to keep quiet until the day Sophia tells everyone about it. And I swore that I'd rather die than betray anything of what I had heard. We had breakfast at Sophia's, and then we rode home. There was something else about riding that morning, someone we met on the path, just as we were leaving Tulip Farm. The man with the red beard. What was his name? Hubert? Oh, so you've been to see Sophia, said Hubert. What have you been doing there? Weeding her garden, said Jonathan, holding up his muddy fingers. And you? Are you out hunting? He said, because Hubert had his bow in front of him on the pommel of his saddle. Yes, I'm going to get myself a couple of rabbits, said Hubert. I thought of our small rabbits at home, and I was glad when Hubert trotted his horse away so that I no longer had to see him. Hubert, I said to Jonathan, what do you think of him? Jonathan thought for a while. He's the best marksman in the whole of Cherry Valley. He didn't say anything else, and then urged on his horse, and we rode on. Jonathan had taken Paloma's message with him, pushed it into a little leather bag under his shirt, and when we got home, he put the piece of paper into the secret drawer in the sideboard. But first, I was allowed to read what was on it, and this is what it said. Orva was caught yesterday and is now imprisoned in Katla Cavern. Someone in Cherry Valley must have betrayed his hiding place. You have a traitor there. Find out who. Find out who, said Jonathan. I wish I could. There was more in the message, but that was written in some secret language which I didn't understand, and Jonathan said that I needn't know it, that it was something Sophia had to know. But he showed me how to open the secret drawer now. I was allowed to open it and close it several times, and then he closed it himself and locked the sideboard and put the key back in the mortar. All that day I thought about what I'd been told, and that night I didn't sleep very well. I dreamt about Tangle and dead pigeons and the prisoner in Katla Cavern, and I cried out in my sleep so that I woke up. And then, believe it or not, then I saw something standing in the dark corner over by the sideboard, someone who was frightened when I cried out, and he vanished like a dark shadow through the door before I had even woken up properly. It all happened so quickly that I almost thought I dreamt it all, but Jonathan didn't think so when I woke him, and I told him. Oh no, Rusky, that was no dream, he said. That was certainly no dream. It was the traitor. I'm reading your message, Ava, and I will say hello to Noah. Oh, it's actually Kira. Oh, it's both of you. That was actually the end of chapter 5. I'm guessing that we will find out a little bit more about who that person might have been that snuck into their house. I hope they didn't find the secret message. Now, I'm going to do a little shout out for all of you, just so you know that it was Elise and Ava and Kira that have been listening here all together. So I'm going to do a little wave to the 3 of you. Thank you for tuning in. And tomorrow at 5 o'clock, I'll be here again. If you want to say something, ask something, talk about something, know about something, just write a message or get your mum and dad to email it to me, and I'll see if I can talk about that. Okay? Now, I have got a date. I'm going to go and have a little Skype session with Miss Watson, with Sarah, because, sometimes we want to catch up too. Sarah is my friend. Bye. Have a really good day.